A rustle runs through the grass, something moves with uncanny ease across the area. Eve's gaze finds the source of the disturbance, and the creature she sees awakens an involuntary thought inside her. What exactly is she looking at? The answer is anything but ordinary. The pure breeze moves without obstacles. The waters in the Garden of Eden run unhurriedly, but their sound feels distant. At the center stands a tree no one touches. Eve moves forward slowly, her steps restrained, her eyes hypnotized by the glow of the fruit. The silence does not bring peace, it seems to stretch out a weight no one ever planned for. Suddenly, a voice emerges, clear, without threat, and plants inside her an uncomfortable, persistent doubt. Eve answers instinctively, and one extra sentence slips out, short, but enough. That same voice, now firm, says something she did not expect to hear, and will never be able to forget. A metallic flash appears high among the branches, striking and beautiful. The fruit sways on its stem. Suddenly, the garden seems to suspend its own will, and a sharp question brings every movement to a halt. What exactly is speaking to her? Nothing in Eden moves by chance. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil stands where it is always in sight. At the center, it highlights what is most precious given to creation, free will, and it serves as a reminder of a boundary that a single choice can cross. Eve walks past, looks, and moves on, until the day her gaze lingers for too long. That morning, when Adam goes off toward the east, Eve does not go with him. In that moment, the garden seems to amplify a strange disturbance. A voice suddenly arises, and its first words do not deny what God said, they only subtly distort its meaning. Eve's thoughtless reply brings in a detail that is not in the command, and that small opening allows unauthorized access. Originally called nāḥāsh, this ancient word carries a meaning greater than simply serpent. It conveys beauty, intelligence, and cunning, attributes found in no other being. Its sound echoes softly, its certainty spoken with sweetness, the trap sets itself without haste. The air carries a fresh, pleasant smell of wet earth. The waters of the 4 river arms snake through the untouched garden. In that tree, there is something that draws the eye. The fruit has a flushed, almost fiery color, distinct, but that is not it. Eve has been watching it day after day, each time a little closer, each time with greater interest. She nurtures curiosity within herself, not necessarily the desire to taste it. The command not to eat is simple, yet it stirs in her the desire to understand why. It is not its beauty or uniqueness that keeps her from passing by without seeing it. It is the prohibition that makes it more and more intriguing. Her gaze, until then merely curious, now measures the distance, and her mind begins to search for possibilities. Questions that never existed start to emerge, and Eden, for the first time, seems to be hiding the answers. It is morning. Adam heads toward the springs in the east, and Eve decides to stay behind, alone, with one intention in mind. Then she rises and walks off in another direction. Without realizing it, she breaks God's charge regarding her purpose, to come to the man's aid, to remain at his side, to stay with him. Eve reaches the place she wanted, and, in yet another moment of contemplation, gazes with fascination at that tree and its enigmatic fruit. What could it have that is so special, so dangerous? At a distance, hidden in the shadows, someone watches with eager interest as that woman stands half a step from that broad trunk, spellbound. Someone who has already noticed that for some time she has been acting this way, yet without the courage to go further. Someone who has understood that she needs just the right encouragement, the necessary push. Someone who now recognizes that the right moment for this has come. Eve does not reason that one should flee from temptation rather than provoke it, and unintentionally, that persistent and deliberate attitude creates the perfect occasion for an act that will change things in a way she never planned. The air quickly changes in density, growing more dense. A distinct rustle runs through the pristine grove. Something moves lightly, brushing against the lush leaves. A fleeting reflection flashes between the trunks and disappears. Eve sweeps the area with her eyes. She searches. She waits. Nothing. She chooses to remain still. Unexpectedly, a voice appears, soft and measured. It comes from behind her, but she does not dare to turn around. It cannot be an animal, she thinks, yet it is unlike any sound she knows. An uncertainty quickly invades her thoughts. If Adam is farther to the east, who is here? Yet before her question can gain strength, her thoughts are interrupted by a shrewd question. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden"? The question sounds friendly, almost sincere. Strangely, Eve is not frightened. The familiarity of the tone disarms her defenses. Without thinking, she answers, quickly trying to defend God and His command. "We may eat from the trees in the garden, except for the fruit of the one that stands in the middle of it. We must not touch it, or we will die." The words come out too quickly, letting a detail slip that allows the creature to spot a flaw in the woman's understanding. God had not said they could not touch it. A small sentence, but it sets off a quiet alarm of opportunity that will not be wasted. After a brief moment, a steady, rhythmic breath can be felt, and a subtle shift in the air is noticed. Eve hears a low sound, something scraping against the wood of the branches. In the very next second, that same intense, measured voice returns, and the reply it gives to her words is direct. "You will not certainly die." The statement is charged with certainty. Eve then decides to turn and face her interlocutor, only to be surprised by what she sees. The creature approaching her is unlike any other. Its form is slender and flexible, and it moves with the lightness and dignity of a superior being. It glides smoothly between the trees and lands with the softness of a feather, the extravagant bearing of a counselor with a harmless, inspiring appearance. Its armor is made of overlapping layers of plates, iridescent like 1,000 opals, covering its body and catching Eden's light, reflecting it in soft, inviting shades of gold, green, and sky blue. A gentle, almost angelic glow emanates from it, making it resemble a living jewel. Its head is elongated like that of a serpent, and its face has a surprising elegance, with large, deep, expressive eyes, sapphire blue, conveying ancient wisdom and a gentle curiosity. Its expression is serene and unshaken. Its wings are two long folds of thin, dappled skin that stretch from its shoulders to the base of its long, imposing tail. Reinforced by light, flexible cartilage, they rest elegantly folded against its body when the creature walks. To fly, with one fluid, deliberate movement of its body, those membranes open like a translucent fan of amber and gold. On the ground, it moves on four short, graceful yet strong legs. Its limbs bear agile fingers with translucent claws that give it a firm grip, allowing for a silent step across the surface. Whether on land or in the air, its very structure of dominion combines the firmness of the earth with the freedom of the sky. Nāḥāsh, that is the name this radiant being bears. More than serpent, it means the one who whispers, who divines, who enchants, the most crafty of all the wild animals that the Lord God had made, and in crafty, understand also the capacity to deceive. Eve does not know the term, but she can almost feel its definition. The creature's voice resounds again, like a melodious, persuasive whisper, inviting her into conversation. The tempter follows up his answer with an irresistible, almost cruel provocation. "For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The words float around Eve. The idea sounds fair, even generous. If the Creator has given everything, why would He withhold knowledge? A new feeling rises within her. She feels her heart begin to race, not because of what she heard, but because of the possibility that it might be true. The sun begins to sink toward the horizon, and the golden light slips with new intensity through the branches. Eve comes a little closer to the tree and touches the cold trunk. The fruit yields slightly and brushes against her fingertips. Nothing happens. No thunder of warning. No voice of warning. Yet the stillness is different, as if everything around her were trying to say something. Eve stares at the fruit with renewed interest. It reflects her face like a natural mirror. At the same time, something inside her begins to change. The voice of that presence still echoes, mingled with the sound of her own heart. She takes a deep breath. The beauty of that tree and the pleasant appearance of that fruit are now more enveloping, drawing her attention and desire with greater force, not imposing themselves, but heightening her expectation. In this moment, the completeness and harmony of Eden are placed on a fragile balance of choices. A wind from the east blows lightly toward her. The leaves of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil sway gently with the brush of the breeze. Eve fixes her gaze on the fruit. The voice of the nāḥāsh remains silent, but the memory of what was said still resounds, firm, repeating itself in her mind. You will not certainly die. A forceful sentence, as sure as a law. There is no hostility in this memory, only the strange sense that her world is no longer the same as it was a moment ago. Everything now divides between obedience and curiosity, between what she had heard and what she hears now. The fruit hangs before her, swaying on its stem. Its intoxicating scent blends with the aromatic smell of the grass, carried by a delicate breeze. Eve feels her breathing slow and her heartbeat faster, as if her body were trying to announce something her mind does not understand. She thinks of stepping away, but something in that calm convinces her to stay, convinces her to consider that there is nothing wrong. Eve still does not know whether what lies behind the voice is merely a splendid creature, a welcoming spirit, or an echo of her own will. She does not know whether it is a legitimate permission granted or an attempt to seek, on her own, a confirmation for her longing. Her doubt rises in many forms, but none of them shows itself completely. Two likely scenarios fall naturally into place: hiding behind uncertainties to dodge responsibility, guilt, and consequences in order to fulfill her desire, or yielding to the certainty that goes against her intentions. Eve has God's command and the challenge of the talking serpent, two opposing circumstances, and only one is possible. Soon she will decide which must prevail. The reflective surface of the fruit is almost hypnotic. On its smooth skin, Eve's face appears and disappears as the wind nudges it back and forth. For an instant, a second face comes into view just behind hers, its contours slightly blurred, yet recognizable. Large, expressive sapphire blue eyes. When she blinks, the image dissolves, and in that same moment her memory retrieves something thrilling the tempter has said. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. It was the one push that had been missing. The nāḥāsh waits close by, a waiting that does not grow tired. The line between the natural and the sacred becomes blurred. Eve stretches out her hand, resolved. Her touch on the fruit is light, careful. Nothing out of the ordinary happens. It seems the serpent is telling the truth. The tree now seems very pleasant to the taste, and desirable for gaining knowledge from it. How can something that appears so good be forbidden? The flaw in her reasoning leads her to hear the command wrongly and to cross a boundary that, until now, had never been violated, and she does not even think of turning back. The doubt sown by an insidious question now turns into a deceptive certainty that breathes on its own inside her. Suddenly, everything seems to contract around her. She thinks of Adam, far off, occupied. She thinks how simple it would be to call him, to say there is something strange at the center of the garden, but she does not. Perhaps she feels it is a matter that belongs to her alone. The fruit sways again. Eve watches it and caresses it until she has the feeling that time has stopped. The sun shifts in the sky, and a band of light cuts through the top of the tree. The wind begins to blow again, cooler. Eve closes her eyes and hears the sound of her own heart, slightly out of rhythm. The garden is different now. The purity from before has been replaced by a new kind of silence, the silence of expectation. She opens her eyes and finds the fruit in front of her, at the level of her face, displayed in a seductive way. The small stem that holds it seems delicate, easy to break. With a steady hand, she pulls with just the right force and frees it from the branch. It is her last chance to step back. All she has to do is open her fingers and let it fall, but that motion never comes. Eve is motionless. The fruit in her hand weighs more than it should. The light on it is no longer the same. It seems to come from within, a gentle glimmer, like fire beneath the skin. Everything around her is silent, but she knows she is being watched. A different awareness accompanies her, attentive and patient, a kind of guardian standing there to ensure her satisfaction is complete. The thought that invades her is simple and innocent. That creature is far too beautiful, and far too intelligent, to be hiding evil. She lifts the fruit. Its aroma is intense and sweet. She touches it to her lips, hesitant. Nothing strange happens. The absence of any reaction is the first blow. Caution disappears, and self-confidence takes over. At the first bite, a small piece of the fruit comes away, soft, and the taste spreads through her mouth, light, intoxicating. There is no bitterness, only the flavor, and the awareness of having tasted it. In that instant, she believes she has seen the serpent smile. Perhaps it is only a vague reflection in the moisture on the leaves, perhaps a lapse in her perception caused by the pleasure radiating from that sweet bite. Or perhaps there truly is a treacherous satisfaction in that rare, penetrating gaze. Suddenly, things begin to lose their shape. The wind, once warm, now blows cold, aggressive. The sunlight shifts, and the shadows of the trees stretch out as if the day had suddenly grown old. A shiver runs through her body. Something fundamental and precious, though still unrecognizable, has been displaced. Footsteps are heard in the distance. The sound of them grows louder as they draw nearer, steady and calm, unhurried. Eve recognizes who is coming: Adam. He smiles when he sees her and quickens his pace. She lifts the fruit in her hand and displays it with satisfaction. Then she extends it toward him with affection. Its unusual fragrance betrays that something is out of place. He stops a few steps from her and looks, with a certain fear, at the beautiful, smiling face he so admires, while his mind searches for a plausible justification for such an obvious wrong. And it is in that moment that Eve perceives, reflected in Adam's sorrowful gaze, the grave offense she has committed. Involuntarily, she now offers that fruit no longer with pleasure and joy, but with a plea in her eyes. The loyalty of her beloved is the only thing she has left. Adam looks intently at what is in Eve's hand, trying to steady the whirlwind of thoughts rushing into his mind. The Creator had given a clear command and had placed the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in Eden not in some random corner, but in the middle of the garden, to highlight what he had given as most precious to his creature: the freedom to choose. There was a right decision and a wrong one, and now, undeniably, the woman given to him has made hers. He reflects on the result of this disobedience, on the judgment that will come. He tries to imagine any possible, acceptable alternative, but none appears. Eve is moving toward an end he does not desire. She will taste a destiny that was never intended for either of them. He already begins to probe the thought of a tomorrow without his companion, without his beloved. He reasons in his heart through the implications of her absence, the existential emptiness that would accompany her end, and concludes that he will not be able to live, or even exist, in a world without her. "Bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh," he once said. Now it is his moment to choose. And though he knows that decision was made from the very first instant he saw her, no better moment has ever arisen to reveal it than now. Adam looks at the fruit with interest, and without needing to take it from Eve's hand, he bites into it. She, at last, will not face the judgment alone. It did not take much effort to choose his side on this road. His act of love overruled his judgment. Not for a moment did he consider the Lord's mercy, his compassion, his love for his creation, not even his grace and forgiveness. He did not appeal to any of it. He placed the woman above the Creator, breaking a principle that no longer held weight for him, to love God above all things. The wind begins to blow again, but it no longer carries the same freshness. The leaves that once moved with grace now tremble under uneven gusts. Adam and Eve stand together, motionless, the taste of the fruit still clinging to their mouths and their memory. Its fragrance hangs in the air, tied to the moment the command was broken. Eve lifts her eyes. The garden is still beautiful, but such beauty now disturbs her. Everything that was familiar has become strange. Suddenly, there is the sound of footsteps in the distance, heavy, measured, drawing near. It is as if the very ground recognizes its Creator approaching. And even under the weight of guilt, something inside the woman remains alive, not a feeling of fear, nor even of sincere repentance, but of hope, an expectation that, if the one who formed them still comes near, perhaps he does not come to condemn. Yet the piercing voice of God rings out with a painful question. Adam, where are you? The Lord's question reaches the ears of the first couple in a deeply striking way, with the tone of profound anguish, like a father questioning his children with intense sorrow. They understand what they have done, and recognize the distress in that call. That bitterness breaks through the walls of the soul, exposing the true question behind the question. Why did you do this to me? Adam and Eve realize that God's love has not changed, yet it has been wounded. They know that true love does not abandon, but disciplines, and so humanity witnesses the day Eden ceased to be perfect. The nāḥāsh, the tempter, was not seen again. The garden cannot erase what it has witnessed. In it, shame and truth have both taken their place. From that crafty creature, only a trace remained, insinuating words that did not come from an ordinary animal, and a manner of presence that hinted at something beyond flesh, a being originally noble, a rebellious mind hidden beneath the form of beauty, cunning, and elegance, now used as an instrument of an older adversary who hides his will, choosing the shadows to conceal his purpose. The serpent here, at the beginning of all things, is not Satan himself, but a tool used by him, acting in his name, and this pattern repeats in the life of the king of Tyre, who is used by him in such a personal way that he is identified as if he were the very one. In both cases, they become ambassadors at his service. In Eden, it was not a snake as we know it. By the punishment imposed on it, to crawl on its belly and eat dust all the days of its life, it is evident that it had not always been so. It is logically acceptable and entirely possible that, originally, it walked like a four-footed creature and even flew, and that the judgment was meant to strip away those primary abilities. With Eve, the crown of creation, the tempter prevented her from recognizing the trap toward which she was being drawn. The real temptation of the serpent lay in these words. God knows that when you eat from it, you will be like him. The devil's deception here rests on two essential points. First, he led the woman to desire what he himself had longed for, to be like God, something made clear when he declared he would be like the Most High. Second, he offered her what she and the man already possessed, for God had already made them in his image and likeness, to rule over the earth and everything in it, to be his representatives in this world. Subtly and skillfully, the deceiver managed to convince Eve that they did not have everything they could have, and implied that the Creator had lied when he said they would die. Satan cast the bait and caught his prey. He knew the rest would follow naturally. Adam chose Eve out of his love for her, and in doing so rejected faithfulness to the Lord. The couple bore the judgment, and with them, humanity, and this event shows that nothing and no one, not even the holiness of marriage, may stand above God. By our modern standards, it may seem like a punishment far too severe, but what many fail to notice is that it was Adam and Eve's choice that brought this catastrophe, and that this choice revealed they were willing to reject the Creator's rule in favor of something supposedly better. God then withdraws and allows them to have what they themselves insisted on. We must never forget that truth, freedom, and life itself are in God, and apart from Him none of these exist. That is why the Lord told Adam he would die if he disobeyed. He would lose his connection to the very source of life. Even so, humanity's story has not reached its end. Faithfulness was broken, but even there a promise began to beat. The world became harsher, but not orphaned. The same voice that once asked where Adam was still calls, not to condemn, but to lead back home. The way to the garden was closed, the way to God was not. When Adam took Eve's hand, she understood that although paradise now lay behind them, the future was still ahead. That faith was born in the same instant innocence died, and the Creator, who sorrowfully watched it all fall apart, was already designing the new beginning. The tempter has changed his shape, updating and adapting himself to the realities that have surfaced through the centuries, and his voice still whispers doubts and stirs rebellion. The difference he did not count on is that now you know how to recognize it. Did this story help you in any way? Tell us in the comments. Your story is part of the message we want to share. And if this content was meaningful to you, leave a like. That small gesture tells us we are on the right path, and it also helps YouTube understand that content like this matters, so it can recommend more videos like this one. And you don't have to stop here. In the description and on the final card, there is another episode just as striking that you truly need to see. We'll meet you there. Each story we tell is a living reminder that the Word of God still speaks, still reaches, and still awakens. Hold on to your faith. The day will come when the deceiver and his deception will have their power and influence destroyed forever. Eden may have fallen, but the true paradise will be rebuilt in the way God most desires, with your name written into its foundations.